Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 181. Public Display of Affection. On the second day, Emperor Zaiwei decreed that Lei Tie and Lei Xiongji were to be in mourning and disregard of reasons and given 7 days leave. If the parents of an official of the imperial court die, no matter what the official post was, he must return to his ancestral home and leave their posts for 27 months from the day he learned of the funeral, as this was the normal mourning period. The disregard of reasons remarks exempted them from this practice and to leave their official posts. With the identity of the state defender Duke, it was very convenient for Lei Tie to act, and he found some things. 2 bodies were discovered in the mass grave on the outskirts of the capital. Through the coroner's examination, they were identified to have died of poisoning. One of them still had a quiver on his back. The arrows inside were just the same as those that were used to shot Duchi dead. However, the trail turned cold from there. It was a bit tricky because they didn't even have a suspect. If they couldn't find out who was behind the scene, there might be other troubles in the future. Qin Mian believed that Emperor Zaiwei must know something. "I'll probe into the palace." Lei Tie made up his mind. Qin Mian hesitated. With his and Lei Tie's ability, there would be no problem in probing into the palace with the spiritual sense without being detected. But his and Lei Tie's movement must have been being monitored by Emperor Zaiwei. If they got clues from the palace and followed that new clue, then problem might arouse should Emperor Zaiwei inquired how they got the information. Lei Tie didn't want him to worry, get the clue first. Qin Mian also felt that he was thinking too much. At present, the most important thing was to find a breakthrough. "All right, be careful. I'll go to the drugstore as usual to avoid suspicion." Due to them pretending to have a fallout with Lei Xiongji, besides showing his face in Lei Xiongji's residence on the day of Duchi's death, Qin Mian went to Ruyi Pharmacy and Jewel Pavilion as before. After a few days, people who paid close attention to the state defender Duke estate now thought that Lei Tie and Lei Xiongji truly had a falling out. Qin Mian rode on horseback on the road, still wondering why Lei Daqiang didn't rush to the state defender Duke estate to demand justice for Duchi or take advantage of Duchi's death in some ways. He was still overestimating Lei Daqiang's sense of shame. Lei Daqiang wanted money and life, but he wanted life more. Duchi's death scared him. He had made up his mind to disown Lei Tie. However, he hadn't given up the idea of taking advantage of Duchi's death. He wanted Lei Xiongji to ask Lei Tie for a large sum of money as compensation. As a result, Lei Xiongji's heart turned so cold that he got depressed for several days. Some people saw that he was a lot thinner than before, which consequently cemented the idea that there was a conflict between him and Lei Tie. In the state defender Duke estate, Lei Tie sat on the bed with his knees crossed and eyes closed as he skillfully controlled his spiritual sense to enter the palace. After entering the palace, he began to look for Emperor Zaiwei. Luckily, he found Emperor Zaiwei in the imperial study. Together with Emperor Zaiwei was Imperial Prince Ming. Imperial Prince Ming was about 3 to 4 years younger than Emperor Zaiwei. Contrarily, his appearance was scholarly and less rigid than Emperor Zaiwei. He sat upright in the elegant fan-shaped armchair. These days, Emperor Zaiwei was also investigating the death of Duchi. At this time, his face looked cold and his mood was in a bad state. "How's the investigation on the death of the state defender Duke's stepmother?" Imperial Prince Ming frowned slightly and said in a cold voice, "Answering your majesty. It's most likely the doing of Prince Zhongcheng." However, Prince Zhongcheng had hidden himself too well. With the state defender Duke having just entered the capital, it's not conducive to investigate him for the time being. Had. Emperor Zaiwei's face was livid. With a sweep of his hand, the cup of hot tea on the table fell to the floor. The shattering sound was very clear in the quiet imperial study. "Prince Zhongchen, what a good loyal prince." When Zhen was still the crown prince, he repeatedly used underhanded methods against Zhen. After Zhen ascended the throne, "For the sake of our blood relationship, Zhen not only spared his life but also conferred him this Prince Zhongcheng title, and look at how he rewarded Zhen. Eunuch Li was so scared that he fell on the ground. "Your Majesty, please calm your anger and take care of your dragon body." Imperial Prince Ming stood up and drooped his head, keeping silent. Even if he was Emperor Xiaowai's younger brother, there were some words that he couldn't say. In front of his younger brother, Emperor Xiaowai showed his true temperament. At this time, he lost his temper and didn't care about it too much. He calmed down. "Sit down. Does my eldest imperial son took part in it?" Imperial Prince Ming carefully said, "At present, no clue has been found to point to His Highness." Imperial Prince Ming was a little distracted. His imperial brother ascended the throne at the age of 16. Now, it was the 31st year of Emperor Xiaowai's reign. His imperial brother was 47 years old this year. Due to good health maintenance, it looked like he was only 35 to 36 years old. There was almost no secret in the palace. Although he hid his great health very well, one could still see that he was in good health from his daily life. Conservatively speaking, his imperial brother could sit on the throne for at least 10 years more. However, his imperial brother's eldest son with the first empress was already 28 years old and the youngest son was 14 years old. It was not surprising that some people couldn't wait anymore. How could Emperor Xiaowai not understand this? But once the supreme power was in hand, it was difficult to let go. This was the first reason. Secondly, every emperor had ambition in his heart and he was no exception. He still had a lot of great ambitions that had not been realized. He couldn't give up his power, even dividing out a part of that power was out of the question. Therefore, he had yet to appoint a crown prince. At the court today, some people asked him to establish a crown prince. This was one of the reasons why Emperor Xiaowai was quite upset at this time. Yet, this subject can't figure out what Prince Zhongcheng's purpose was to having Duchi killed, asked Imperial Prince Ming in puzzlement. No matter how much he knew, he couldn't know more than Emperor Xiaowai. Thus, he asked. Neither Imperial Prince Ming nor Emperor Xiaowai found any pair of ears paying attention to their conversation. The answer to this question of Imperial Prince of Ming was also what LIAN wanted to know. Emperor Xiaowai pondered for a moment. When State Defender Duke was still the general of the West Order, Prince Zhongcheng was in the border province. He didn't know much about State Defender Duke. In Zhen's opinion, it's mostly to test the strength and influence of the State Defender Duke. Many of the State Defender Duke's former subordinates are still in the army. They are most loyal to him. How can Prince Cheng not pay attention to him? With that, he changed the subject. Imperial Prince Ming wisely followed along. LIAN took back his spiritual sense. He knew exactly how things stood. He ordered someone to bring out the horse and went out on horseback to Pear Blossom Alley. When he didn't see a certain someone in the drugstore, he went to the silverware shop. Before he entered the door, he saw a noble woman and a young lady of 16 to 17 years old standing in front of the counter. His wife was behind the counter, holding a brocade box in his hand and saying something. The young lady's eyes glanced at his wife from time to time, her cheeks flushed. LIAN's aura abruptly became gloomy and bursts of coldness swept into the jewel pavilion. The noble woman and the young lady inexplicably shivered. The young lady turned her head unintentionally and met a pair of cold black eyes. Her heart abruptly jumped and her face turned white. She quickly lowered her head and whatever beautiful thoughts she had were no more. "Ah Tie, you're here." Qin Mian also saw LIAN and waved. LIAN's expression was profoundly cold. "Ah Tie," called Qin Mian again, feeling puzzled. LIAN nudged the horse closer. He didn't even get off the horse as he stretched out his right hand to Qin Mian and gazed fixedly at him with a perplexing look in his eyes, bearing unprecedented tyranny. "Wife, we're going home." The customers in the store turned to look over curiously while the passers-by seemed to be surprised by LIAN's action, unconsciously slowing down and paying attention. Qin Mian's heart beat like a drum. This domineering act of LIAN didn't make him feel disgusted. On the contrary, his heart was filled with sweetness, and at the same time, he couldn't help but scold himself for being as hopeless as a young lad. Layer upon layers of smiles rose on the corners of his lips and in the inside of his eyes. Without hesitating, he gave the brocade box to the assistant and told him to entertain the customers well. Then, he strode across the threshold and stretched his hand out to LIAN. "Is work's over?" The corner of LIAN's lips almost imperceptibly curved up as he simply answered. Holding the hand in his palm, he pulled up the weight of his husband with little effort and lovingly placed his wife within his arms. He wrapped his iron arm around his wife with his legs gently pressing the belly of the horse. The horse moved forward steadily and leisurely. Because the speed was not fast, more passers-by crowded on the street to look. Is it all right to make a public display of affection like this? Mian thought so in his heart. Unwilling to break away from his man's arms, he indifferently leaned back against the man's chest and didn't urge LIAN to leave quickly. His wife was so docile that it greatly pleased LIAN. The corners of his lips were completely curved up. He put his chin was on his wife's shoulder and listened quietly to their rapid heartbeat thumped one after the other, completely synchronized in a moment. Out of Pear Blossom Alley, the horse did not run in the direction of Chang'an Street but turned to Minggu Street. Mian had some doubts. Minggu Street was practically a food street where restaurants, tea houses, wine houses, bakeries, noodle shops, and the likes were on both sides of the street. What were they going to do there? He had a vague conjecture, but he did not ask anything, still quietly leaning on his man. As the gallant horse shuttled through the crowd, he casually looked at the streetscape ahead with a smile on his lips. Into Minggu Street, the gallant horse stopped at a bakery's entrance. The shop owner looked strangely at the two men riding together. However, since there were many high-ranking officials in the capital and that the two men were well dressed, he would not speak out of turn. He warmly greeted them. "What do the two young masters want to buy?" With the gesture of embracing Mian, LIAN untied Mian's purse, took out a piece of broken silver, and passed it to the shop owner. He dully said, "A basket of husband and wife cakes for take-away." The shop owner was stunned and quickly responded, "Alrighty. Young master, please wait a moment." Mian's eyes were full of laughter. Because he restrained his laughter, his upper body vibrated slightly in LIAN's arms, like a cat's paw gently scratching on the apex of LIAN's heart. He tightly fastened his arm to warn the man in his embrace. Mian felt the hard object behind him and took a breath silently. He pinched his right hand on LIAN's hand that was holding the reins. Acting as if nothing was wrong, he held the reins and calmly looked straight ahead with an upright appearance. Quick, LIAN picked up the food box that the shop owner handed over. Go. Mian pressed the horse belly and the horse started to gallop. End chapter. Minwei Nan. Chapter 182. Diplomatic mission from the Western Barbarian. Upon seeing the two masters coming in, the manservants quickly brought hot water and hot tea. After Mian washed his hands, he came to the table, opened the food box and slightly smiled. This husband and wife cake was a round, evenly thick meat cake that had a straight groove pressed out from the middle and coated with sweet spicy sauce. It had the metaphorical meaning of auspicious. Plus, the taste was pretty good. It was famous in the whole capital. LIAN was still washing his hands. Mian picked up a cake and tasted it. "It's really tasty." He picked up another one and went to LIAN. He leaned against the screen and sent the husband and wife cake to LIAN's mouth. LIAN's eyes were fixed on him. Nevertheless, he went closer and bit the cake his wife had bitten. They shared the 6 husband and wife cakes. LIAN talked about the information he got in the palace. As soon as he heard it, he knew that Prince Zhongcheng, who were coveting the throne, was a troublesome character. If one was targeted by such a person, one couldn't be put in the passive position of having to receive blows. Wife, when you're free, concoct some sleeping drugs. LIAN produced a soundproof array so that people outside couldn't hear the sound from the inside. Mian was taken aback. What are you planning to do? LIAN's flat voice said firmly, it can be roughly concluded from the words of His Majesty and Imperial Prince Ming that His Majesty and Prince Zhongcheng were in a deadlock for some reason, so neither dare to act rashly. Make Prince Zhongcheng unconscious and see how the situation will develop. What he didn't add was that if Emperor Xiaowai called him to the capital for the purpose of putting him on the battlefield, it would be the right time to wage war after the domestic unrest was solved. He would finish the battle as soon as possible and find a way to resign afterwards. Mian nodded. In any case, Emperor Xiaowai's sovereignty came within his jurisdiction. If Prince Zhongcheng rebelled, the capital would immediately set off wines carrying an offensive smell of blood. Even if they didn't like Emperor Xiaowai, they couldn't act against Emperor Xiaowai. However, they can do something about Prince Zhongcheng. I'll see what I can do. ******. A few days later, after the court session adjourned, Emperor Xiaowai had just left the Hall of Supreme Harmony and came to the imperial study when the palace attendant reported to him outside the door, reporting to Your Majesty. State Defender Duke seeks an audience. Emperor Xiaowai was surprised. Permit. A moment later, LIAN came in from the door and gave a formal salute. State Defender Duke can stand up. Emperor Xiaowai asked, what brought State Defender Duke to seek an audience with Zhen? LIAN said, reporting to Your Majesty. This subject ventures to ask Your Majesty why was this subject suddenly summoned back to the capital? Emperor Xiaowai's movement of intending to take the teacup paused. He laughed. Zhen thought State Defender Duke could keep equanimity all the time. LIAN said, your subject has a family now. The investigation on Duchi's death has yet to be concluded. Since Duchi's murderer had yet been found out, he was worried that the murderer would threaten the people he cared about, so he could not calm down. This was equivalent to putting his weakness in front of Emperor Xiaowai. Emperor Xiaowai's smile became more sincere and he put more trust in LIAN. Li Fuxiao, give a seat to State Defender Duke. Yes, Your Majesty. LIAN sat down in silence. Emperor Xiaowai asked, my dear subject Lei, how's the army? LIAN said, everything is under control, ready at Your Majesty's command. Emperor Xiaowai pondered, in half a month, a diplomatic mission procession sent by Toluo state will arrive in the capital and will ask to marry a princess of Great Xia state for their sixth prince. As far as Zhen knows, the sixth prince is in the entourage. In recent years, Toluo state has been in a state of unrest. In case something happens to the sixth prince while in Great Xia state, my dear subject Lei should be fully prepared in advance to meet the sixth prince. No mistake is allowed. Toluo state was the country that Great Xia state called Western Barbarian, which was located at the border of Great Xia state. Although the territory was wide, the winter there was severely cold and the country were composed of many deserts. Since ancient times, Toluo had been coveting the vast and abundant territory of Great Xia. That was the reason why there were many wars on the frontier. Back then when LIAN was the general of the West Order, he defeated the Western Barbarian 3 times and greatly pleased the people. However, the Western Barbarians were fierce and bloodthirsty, they might not be reconciled. The implication in Emperor Xiaowai's words was obvious. He was worried that the sixth prince was actually a sacrifice of the emperor of the Western Barbarian. Once something happened to the sixth prince in Great Xia, Toluo would dispatch troops to demand justice. The smoke of war would resurge in the frontier and the people would be destitute. LIAN's heart turned cold. Emperor Xiaowai's plan wouldn't be so simple. Could it be? Yes, as Your Majesty commands. Emperor Xiaowai expressed concern. As for Duchi's case, Zhen will investigate with the force of the Ministry of Justice. My dear subject Lei should not worry too much. This subject thanks His Majesty. LIAN had no other words to say. He asked for leave and left the imperial study. Reporting, Your Majesty. Prince Zhongcheng is critically ill. Eunuch Li raised his eyebrows, extremely suspicious. Prince Zhongcheng is His Majesty's current sore point. How coincidental that he is critically ill at this time. What? Emperor Zaiwei was shocked and slapped the table. He successfully restrained his inner joy and said angrily, "How can that be? Doesn't an imperial doctor check his pulse every 3 days? How did Prince Zhongcheng suddenly become critically ill?" The palace attendant was quick and eloquent, reporting to Your Majesty. About an hour ago, Prince Zhongcheng was walking in his garden and somehow suddenly fell unconscious. The heir apparent of Prince Zhongcheng immediately asked for doctors to come. Unexpectedly, even the 4 doctors who came to see him could not diagnose what ailment he was suffering from. Emperor Zaiwei sat down slowly as he asked about the details. Suddenly fell unconscious, like a deep sleep? It sounds more like poisoning than an acute ailment. How's the Prince Zhongcheng estate? The palace attendant said. The heir apparent of Prince Zhongcheng also suspected that Prince Zhongcheng was poisoned. He interrogated with torture all the people who were together with Prince Zhongcheng within 4 hours before the incident, but none of them was suspicious. Emperor Zaiwei was surprised and looked at Eunuch Li. This is indeed odd. Could it be a strange ailment? After a moment of pause, he said, "At once, order Imperial Dr. Qin to go to the Prince Zhongcheng estate." "Yes, Your Majesty." The palace attendant withdrew in a hurry. Emperor Zaiwei pondered for a while. "Come." A dark shadow loomed in the imperial study. It had a mask on and knelt in front of the imperial table, wordless and uncommunicative. "Where is State Defender Duke?" The voice of the person in black was monotonous and plain, "At the south gate." Emperor Zaiwei calculated in his heart how long it had been since LIAN had left. He said to himself, "It can't be him." Then he asked, "What's the lady of the State Defender Duke doing lately?" The person in black answered, "He goes to Ruyi Pharmacy and Jewel Pavilion every day. Besides that, he seldom went out. There's also nothing unusual about the people in the State Defender Duke estate." Emperor Zaiwei nodded. He completely trusted the secret guard he had cultivated himself, so he was not in the least suspicious. "Withdraw." After the secret guard withdrew, Emperor Zaiwei gave a meaningful glance at Eunuch Li. Eunuch Li bowed with understanding and hurriedly left. *******. When LIAN returned to the State Defender Duke estate, he saw Qin Mian practicing martial arts on the training ground. He stood there quietly, watching until the last move was executed. As the couple spoke, they walked into the inner courtyard side by side. In fact, they were communicating in mind at the same time. What they talked about in mind-to-mind transmission was the most important thing. "How is it, Atie? Everything is going well," the emperor said. "In half a month, ... In case something went wrong with the 6th prince in Great Xia." Qin Mian was surprised. "Why do I think that Emperor Zaiwei and the Emperor of Toluo have the same plan?" LIAN nodded. "I thought so, too. That is to say that Emperor Zaiwei certainly has to sacrifice a princess." Qin Mian said, "As far as I know, only Princess Yanqing and Princess Duaning are left." He burst out laughing. "Is Emperor Zaiwei going to have Princess Yanqing marry for peace? Does the 6th prince even like her?" LIAN doubted it. "Ha ha ha," Qin Mian couldn't help laughing. Why didn't he find out that his family's poker face had such a poisonous tongue? After drinking a big mouthful of water, he confidently analyzed, "Princess Yanqing and Princess Duaning are both the legitimate daughters of the Empress. Their identities are both honorable. But Princess Duaning's mother is the current Empress, so the Empress will sure try her best to protect her. So, she has more advantages than Princess Yanqing. The possibility of the Emperor letting Princess Yanqing marry for peace is not low." *****. 2 days later, a piece of definite news spread out in the capital. After Prince Zhongcheng's strange ailment was cured by a mediocre doctor in the Imperial Institute of Medicine, he went insane. Qin Mian immediately guessed what Emperor Xiaowai did. It was not hard to deal with the sleeping drugs that he concocted. The purpose was to win an initiative for Emperor Xiaowai, but he didn't expect that Emperor Xiaowai would take this opportunity to turn Prince Zhongcheng into a lunatic. Prince Zhongcheng was Emperor Xiaowai's half-brother. If Emperor Xiaowai killed him, his reputation would be damaged, so he chose to turn him into a madman so he would no longer be a threat to himself. On the afternoon of the day when Prince Zhongcheng went mad, another news spread in the capital. A plague broke out in a secret iron mine 10 li outside the capital with nearly 100 deaths. Qin Mian heard from LIAN that these people were actually soldiers that Prince Zhongcheng cultivate in secret. The main ringleaders were all captured by Emperor Xiaowai, composing nearly 20,000 of Prince Zhongcheng's people. The Prince Zhongcheng's faction was greatly undermined. The common people didn't notice the undercurrent in the capital. Simply after hearing about the plague, some people were in a panic. After 3 to 5 days, they calmed down when they saw that the officials and dignitaries in the capital didn't take an action about it. ******. It was the 7th lunar month when the Toluo diplomatic mission arrived in the capital. The frontier army escorted the diplomatic mission to Misty Mountain City, which was 10 days away from the capital. The diplomatic mission was successfully handed over to LIAN, who would be escorting the diplomatic mission into the capital. 2 days before arriving in the capital, on the streets of the capital, a dispatcher rode on a fast horse to the imperial palace and reported to the emperor on the latest movement of the diplomatic mission every hour or so. Upon hearing this, the people in the capital all knew that the Toluo diplomatic mission was coming. They had no good impression for the Western barbarians in their hearts, but on their faces, they tacitly smiled politely as they welcomed the diplomatic mission of another country. The main street of the capital was decorated with lanterns and festoons as though it was a festival. On the day of the diplomatic mission's arrival in the capital, Qin Mian specially asked for a leave of absence for Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan to watch in the crowd. It was not that he didn't attach importance to the two children's education, but he didn't want the children to miss some interesting experiences in their childhood so that they could have more beautiful memories when they grew up. It wasn't a serious matter if they missed one day of school lesson. Qin Mian, Qin Ruki, and Lei Rulan rode on the back of Jin Simo Pi, so no one could jostle them. Such a big bear of at least 1,000 jin, and also looking extremely fierce, who would dare to jostle it? Besides, there was an imperious giant wolf nearby. The father and sons were all dressed in handsome robes. The people around them only stared at the city gate for some time and mostly stared at the dazzling father and sons. The festive sound of gongs and drums was getting closer and closer. Some people shouted, "It's here!" Both Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan raised their heads in expectation. Amused, Qin Mian touched the heads of the two little boys. He didn't expose their thoughts that what they wanted to see was their Lao Dai. Well, he admitted that what he wanted to see most was also the children's Lao Dai. The procession was getting closer and closer, headed by two men riding on tall and big horses. The man on the left was about 22 to 23 years old, young and handsome, and luxuriously dressed, the jewels on his crown dazzled under the sun. He was the 6th prince of Toluo, Li Qingman. The man on the right had dashing eyebrows with bright eyes, cold and resolute bearing, dressed in a suit of armor, mighty and imposing. Who else could it be if not LIAN? "Ah Dai, it's Lao Dai!" Both Qin Ruki and Lei Rulan cried out excitedly. Lei Rulan even jumped up, so excitedly that his small face was flushed. "Lao Dai is so mighty! Shh, keep your voice down. You can't steal the limelight from the guests." Qin Mian gently reminded his son, while his eyes obsessively watched the man who was getting closer. LIAN saw his wife and sons in the crowd. While there was no expression on his face, his tender eyes looked at his wife and the two sons in turns for a long time. Qin Mian, Qin Ruki, and Lei Rulan all understood that he meant to say that he was all right during the days they were apart. The father and sons nodded to him with a faint smile. LIAN only withdrew his gaze when the horse passed by. Jin Simo Pi walked out of the crowd and followed the procession. Across the street, Chen Mufeng looked at the father and sons on Jin Simo P's back, envying them from the bottom of his heart. He had clearly seen the interaction of the family of four just now. Mufeng. Zhang Sun he followed his line of sight and looked over. With a controlled expression, he gentle asked, "What?" Chen Mufeng lightly said, "Nothing." Envious. Zhang Sun he stared straight at him. "We can be like them. My prince father only has me as his heir," said Chen Mufeng in a light tone. At once, Zhang Sun he's face became gloomy. End chapter. Minwei Qi Nan. Chapter 183. Warm and harmonious family. At the thought that his beloved would entangle with a woman, Zhang Sun he felt like a knife was stirring his heart, spilling blood unceasingly. He wanted to kill that fabricated woman. He also loved Chen Mufeng so much that he wanted to eat him whole, but he wasn't willing to do anything drastic because he knew that the pressures on Chen Mufeng was no less than his. With his right hand clenched into a fist in his sleeve, he breathed evenly, stared at Chen Mufeng's eyes and then said in a steady voice, "In that case, we'll continue wasting time. I've plenty of time." For fear of losing control in front of Chen Mufeng, he turned around and left in a hurry. The figure of his back showed profound loneliness and desolation. Chen Mufeng's heart ached, but he didn't follow. Zhang Sun he walked forward in a trot. His cold face frightened the passers-by, who then consciously gave way to him. The two attendants had to jog to keep up with him, not daring to breathe out loud. On the street opposite, a middle-aged man with natural, graceful, and poised temperament rode a black horse slowly toward him. The middle-aged man was followed by 6 other attendants, who also rode on horses. Zhang Sun he halted and went over. The owner of the horse saw him, too, but there was no fluctuation in his expression. The distance between them got closer and closer. Zhang Sun he bowed with a cupped fist and said with a smile, "Greetings, Imperial Prince Ming." Imperial Prince Ming nodded slightly and said with a light smile, "No need to be courteous, Zhang Sun Shi Sui." The reins moved gently and the horse went on. Zhang Sun he caught up with a few steps. His respectful tone was full of sincerity. "Imperial Prince Ming, this junior would like to invite you to have a cup of tea." Venture to ask if Imperial Prince Ming have the time to spare. "Forgive me, Zhang Sun Shi Sui. This prince has been burdened with official business these days. There's no time to spare." Then Imperial Prince Ming nodded and directly left. Zhang Sun he became silent for a long time, not knowing what else he could do. ******. Qin Mian brought Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan back to the State Defender Duke estate. Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan wanted to wait for Lei Tie in the foreyard, so Qin Mian first went back to the inner yard to pick out a change of clothes for Lei Tie and then took the opportunity to enter the magical space to pick some fresh fruits. Without permission, the servants would not enter their rooms at will. Thus, he wasn't afraid of being found out. After picking the fruits, he went to the quadrangle courtyard to see Dianbai. Dianbai had advanced in its cultivation recently. These days, it lay on the ground in the magical space with its eyes closed, motionless. It looked like it was sleeping, but in fact, it was meditating. The spiritual qi in the space entered its body slowly, just like a snowflake falling into the water, fading without traces. The spiritual threads flashed and died out like electric currents on its fur. Its dark fur then became brighter and smoother. Out of the magical space, Qin Mian went back to the foreyard. Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan were practicing martial arts on the training ground, surrounded by a group of servants. The servants knew that the lady had a good temper. As long as they didn't delay their work or break the rules, the lady wouldn't scold them. When they saw Qin Mian coming, they didn't panic and saluted him properly. After Qin Mian nodded, they stepped aside and continued to watch the 2 young masters practicing. Jin Simo P stood by and also watched with delight. Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan were 7 years old this year. Their heights had reached Qin Mian's waist and their bodies were slender and strong. At a young age, they had manifested a modest and light-hearted temperament. No matter where they went, they were the targets of admiration by parents alike. It was surprising to see the two boys sometimes flew to the air to fight and sometimes fell to the ground. Their footwork was faintly discernible and their figures were agile. They didn't yield to each other at all, unusually brilliant. As they spar, their eyes swept to the main gate every now and then. Mian shook his head and held his chin as he mused. This odd eye is pretty good, too. Why do his two sons never look at me with adoring eyes? After a short while, the sound of approaching horses' hooves came from outside the gate. Mian easily recognized that the sound of the horses' hooves belonged to LIAN's black horse. Sure enough, in a flash, LIAN rode into the main entrance. Lao Dai. Ruki and Lei Rulan immediately stopped and ran to meet him. LIAN jumped off his horse, patted his two sons on the shoulders, and handed them a birdcage-sized brocade box. Lei Rulan happily asked, Lao Dai, is this a gift for Gurgr and myself? LIAN nodded. Ruki and Lei Rulan both focused on the brocade box. After saluting to LIAN, the servants voluntarily withdrew. There was only the family of four left on the training ground. LIAN went to Mian and naturally put his arms around Mian's shoulder. He bowed his head and dropped a kiss on Mian's lips. It was as warm as he had fondly remembered. Was your trip smooth sailing? Mian touched his prickly chin and patted the dust off his sleeves in passing. LIAN nodded, took out a palm-sized brocade box from his inner pocket, and handed it to Mian. The brocade box was warm, immersed in LIAN's body temperature. Mian was not in a hurry to see it. Instead, he embraced LIAN's shoulder and said, Go have a bath first and rest. They didn't care about the sons who were still studying how to open the brocade box. They went to the backyard first. That box is? Mian was curious. A box shouldn't take that long to open. LIAN said, There are contraptions. Let them ponder it by themselves. Back in the bedchamber, LIAN went to the washroom to take a bath. Mian took out the box in his inner pocket, lay on the bed, and subconsciously opened the lid. Unexpectedly, he couldn't open it. It turned out that there were contraptions in this brocade box as well. He couldn't help but smile. His heart itched even more, eager to know what LIAN bought for him. The box could be broken by force and what's inside could be found out by using spiritual sense. However, that would not only disappoint LIAN but also make it less fun. Mian first observed the 6 sides of the brocade box and noticed that each side was made up of many small squares. The mystery must be in these little squares. He enthusiastically got ready to try when his back felt heavy, accompanied by the smell of bath soap. Next, his ear was bitten. Wife. Mian curved his lips, placed the brocade box next to the pillow, and closed his eyes as he lay prone on the soft pillow. The feeling of his clothes being taken off became more distinct. The lovemaking was intense and without inhibitions. Paralyzed on the bed, Mian gasped for breath for a long time before he calmed down. His eyes suspiciously floated toward that man's lower body and his temples throbbed. Is that thing going to continue to grow in adulthood? LIAN had a trace of a smile in his eyes as he held Mian's sweat-stained face, kissed his dried petals' lips and moistened them with saliva. Mian reciprocated, not to be outdone. Only when their breathing became unsteady again that the couple separated. LIAN raised his hand, and the teacup on the table flew over. He caught it, drank a sip of tea, and lowered his head to slowly feed it into his wife's mouth. His obsidian eyes focused on his wife without blinking. Mian had regained his normal body temperature with great difficulty and yet it began to rise again. He put his arms around LIAN's neck and opened his mouth to suckle. Another entanglement occurred. Be honest, where did you learn all of this? LIAN looked at him in puzzlement, instinct. Mian had nothing to say in reply. LIAN got off Mian's body and embraced him, letting Mian use his arm as a pillow. Then he pulled the thin blanket at the side and covered them up until the waist. Did you fight with anyone on the way? Not hurt, are you? No, LIAN said. 3 waves of assassins returned without accomplishing anything. Mian guessed, when the time comes to send the 6th prince away, you are most likely to be asked to escort him. LIAN said, very likely. There's a royal banquet tonight. Rank 4 and above noble ladies are required to attend. His Majesty allowed Ruki and Rulan to attend, too. Mian was very interested, so, go it is. We haven't eaten the food from the imperial kitchen yet. He grabbed the brocade box and continued to study it. Outside, 2 familiar steps were approaching. Audai, Laodai. They were both still naked. Mian was in a hurry to get up. LIAN hugged him and didn't let him move. He looked at the closed door and spoke in a deep voice with impressive fatherly authority, play by yourselves. Lei Rulan made a meaningful sound of oh and then ran away with Ruki with a giggle. Mischievous kid. Mian found it both funny and annoying. The couple stayed in the bedchamber for the rest of the day. *******. Thinking of the many inconveniences at the palace banquet that it was unknown what time they would actually get to eat, so Mian made a wok of fried rice. The family of 4 enjoyed a small bowl each. It didn't matter to him and LIAN, but Ruki and Lei Rulan were growing up. Their cultivation was not yet in the level that they could practice Anadias, so they couldn't stand hunger. After the meal, the family of 4 took a bath. After changing their clothes, they went into the palace by carriage. Because it was a carriage customized by the imperial court, when they arrived at the palace gate, the palace guards let the carriage past after they had inspected inside and out and found no suspicious person. Into the palace, the carriage stopped in a special parking lot. The family of 4 got out of the carriage and followed the palace attendants. On the way, they met other appointed officials and noble ladies. Every now and then, they saluted each other. Banquets held in the palace were either in the imperial garden or in the reception hall. Due to the hot weather in summer, tonight's banquet was in the imperial garden. In the imperial garden, colorful flags fluttered and decorated lanterns hung high so it was lighted up just like it was during daytime. The sounds of stringed and woodwind instruments were ceaseless, relaxing and mellow. The emperor and the empress were not here yet. As the most honorable people, they would be the last to appear. The Toluo's envoys also had yet to arrive. Mian originally thought that he would be arranged at the noble lady's seat. Unexpectedly, the palace attendant arranged him next to LIAN. He secretly let out a sigh of relief. He would not be comfortable sitting amongst women. Ruki and Lei Rulan naturally sat with them. Chen Mufeng's seat happened to be opposite them. With a smile from far away, he waved at them. Mian picked up his teacup as a greeting to him. He noticed that there was a gaze staring at him. He looked over. It was Zhang Xunhe, sitting on the right side of Chen Mufeng. Zhang Xunhe nodded to Mian and turned to talk to Chen Mufeng with a gentle look in his eyes. Mian was surprised. Chen Mufeng's partner turns out to be Zhang Xunhe. He acted nonchalantly as he looked straight ahead and raised his right hand to slyly poke at LIAN sitting on his right side. His several poking didn't find the target. Puzzled, he turned his head to take a look. Lei Rulan had his lips pursed, restraining a peal of laughter. It turned out that he deliberately pulled LIAN aside to avoid Mian's hand. Ruki drank a cup of tea, the corner of his mouth curled up. LIAN looked at Mian with calm but doting eyes. End chapter. Minwei Nan. Chapter 184. Give suggestion to Chen Mufeng. Mian helplessly looked at his youngest son and flicked his forehead. Go the side. Hee hee. Lei Rulan made a funny face at him and obediently sat down beside Ruki. Wife, what did you want to say? Asked LIAN. Mian motioned for him to look at the opposite side and communicated through their mind, they're both members of the imperial clan. Will His Majesty tolerate them? LIAN replied, too profound to be understood, perhaps His Majesty would be glad to see it happen. After some thoughts, Mian understood what he meant. Princes, noblemen, courtiers, noble ladies, and so on entered the venue one after another. It was still early. People either stood or sat together to chat. At the beginning of the hour of Su, the palace eunuch's announcement came from outside the garden's gate: His Majesty the Emperor has arrived, Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. Note: hour of Su is 7 to 9 p.m. The sounds of stringed and woodwind instruments stopped. Everyone stood and retreated to both sides. Emperor Zaiwai and the Empress ascended the dais together. Everyone knelt and cried out, "Long live your Majesty! Long live Her Majesty! You may rise." Emperor Zaiwai's voice was as loud as a bell. "Many thanks, Your Majesty." They all stood at the appointed seats and waited until Emperor Zaiwai said they could sit down. Shortly, the palace eunuch announced again, "Here comes His Highness the 6th Prince of Toluo and the official envoys." Lu Manking, the 6th Prince of Toluo, marched in with his 6 official envoys. Lu Manking stopped Tujong in front of the dais, bowed with his right fist on his left chest and said in a loud voice, "This foreign envoy greets His Majesty the Emperor of Great Xia." All the people behind him saluted in unison, "This foreign minister greets His Majesty, the Emperor of Great Xia." Emperor Zaiwai gave a hearty laugh and raised his hand and he said, "Honorable envoys may rise." "Thanking Your Majesty." Emperor Zaiwai said, "Honorable envoys may take your seats." When Lu Manking and the others with him sat down, Emperor Zaiwai said, "Coming from afar, it has been a long journey. Zhen specially ordered people to hold this banquet to welcome you and help wash off the dust. Your Highness Lu and the honorable envoys must enjoy it to your satisfaction." Lu Manking said, "Many thanks, Your Majesty." Emperor Zaiwai raised his voice and said, "Start the banquet." The sounds of stringed and woodwind instruments began again. All dancers from the music and dance office of the inner palace specialized in music and dance, came floating with flowing sleeves along with the melody, dancing gracefully. The beautiful palace maids and the nimble palace eunuchs carried trays in their hands as they walked inside in a line. Good wine, fine food, fruits, and pastries were served one by one, filling the entire table. It was probably because Mian had been running a restaurant for several years that he developed an occupational tics and habitually looked at the dishes on the table. He didn't know the name of the dishes from the imperial kitchen, but from the ingredients, he could roughly see that they were 5-flavored chicken, duck with assorted combination, steamed crab, braised dried abalone, fried shrimp in hot spicy sauce, and soup simmered inside a whole winter melon. They were all beautiful and exquisite in appearance, which made people eager to start eating. They were worthy of being the cuisine from the imperial kitchen. Emperor Zaiwai raised his cup and said, "Your Highness Prince Lu, Zhen would like to propose a toast to you first." "Many thanks, Your Majesty." Lu Manking stood up and downed the cup in one gulp. As the mother of the state, the Empress also made a toast. After Lu Manking returned the toast to Emperor Zaiwai and the Empress respectively, the banquet officially started. When Emperor Zaiwai picked up the chopsticks, everyone moved their chopsticks as well. Mian was very curious about the dishes from the imperial kitchen. He unscrupulously tasted them separately. The fried shrimp in hot spicy sauce surprised him the most. LIAN put down his chopsticks and shelled a plate for him, which made many people look over. In fact, the main purpose of most people attending the palace banquet was not to eat but to show their faces. In particular, since the emperor was the supreme power in the country, a breach of etiquette couldn't be tolerated in the presence of the emperor. Therefore, most people just ate a few mouthfuls at the palace banquet. When they saw the emperor putting down his chopsticks, they would also put theirs down. When they saw the emperor picking up his chopsticks, they would also pick theirs up again. Thus, Mian and LIAN's table appeared particularly eye-catching. Yet, no one could say that they were wrong. The emperor had invited them to dinner and the meal was served to be eaten. There was nothing wrong with eating happily. Qin Mian soon realized that something was wrong, but seeing that Lei Tie was calm, he also regained his calm. Anyway, it was the emperor's treat, not eating it was the same as dishonoring the emperor. Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan had proved themselves to be Qin Mian's sons. They had similar preferences as Qin Mian. They also liked the fried shrimp in hot spicy sauce best. They could take care of themselves. They ate with relish but with graceful manner. Zhang Sun he noticed that Chen Mufeng's eyes would occasionally float to the opposite side. His heart intermittently ached. He drank the wine cup after cup. *******. Lu Manqing had been forced to smile tonight. As a man who grew up in the imperial palace, after seeing many intrigues, how could he not understand that he had become a sacrifice? Even if he did not die in Great Xia, there would still be people coming to kill him before he left Great Xia. The two men opposite to him didn't act out of line, but others could feel the intimacy between them. The invisible tacit understanding made him envious. Inexplicably, he felt a little better and his thoughts cleared up. He thought to himself whether the princess he was going to marry could become a breakthrough for him to survive. However, it was a tacit understanding between the two sides that they wouldn't talk about business at the banquet. Emperor Xiaowai and Lu Manqing chatted freely about some mundane and trivial things. Some civil officials with good eloquence inserted a few words from time to maneuver the conversation. Nearly 2 hours later, the grand banquet ended in a good atmosphere. Qin Ruqi and Lei Rulan were full and drowsiness thus crept in. Qin Mian and Lei Tie each held one boy. The two brothers lay on their two fathers' shoulders and fell asleep in a daze. Chen Mufeng looked at the drunken man beside him and lifted him with a silent sigh. "What should I do with you?" Zhang Sun he leaned on him in a dizzy spell, his steps were unsteady. "Mufeng! Don't leave me!" Worried that his words would be heard by others, Chen Mufeng took him along a remote path. "Mufeng! I'm here." Chen Mufeng patted him on the back. "I love you, love you." Chen Mufeng said in a low voice, "Me too." Zhang Sun he was in a trance, his mouth only murmured Mufeng's name. Imperial Prince Ming looked at the back of the two men, who were entangled in each other and stumbling forward. With a cold snort, he told his attendant, "Tell the Commandery Prince Mu to return home early." "Yes, Your Highness." At the parking lot, Qin Mian unexpectedly saw Chen Mufeng coming from another direction while having some difficulties supporting Zhang Sunhe. Chen Mufeng had a weary expression. He looked bewildered. The Mu Chen that he knew of was lively and cheerful, totally different from Chen Mufeng of the capital. "Ah Tie, wait a bit." Lei Tie saw Chen Mufeng and understood, "Don't be too long." Qin Mian nodded and went to Chen Mufeng. "Does Commandery Prince Mu need help?" Chen Mufeng said in certainty, "You know." Qin Mian nodded and patted him on the shoulder. "Look at your weary appearance. If you need any help, please let me know. We are friends." "Qin Mian, to tell you the truth, you and Lei Tie are a devoted couple with deep affection, but he and myself are a hell of a mess. I envy you very much. Therefore, I don't know how to tell you about he." Chen Mufeng was embarrassed when he remembered what happened outside Dongyang Academy last time. Qin Mian saw that there was a big problem between him and Zhang Sunhe, so he comforted him, "Where there's a will, there's a way." Chen Mufeng pondered for a moment and said, "When will you be free to talk?" Qin Mian jokingly said, "I'm free after dawn and before dark." A person nourished by love was indeed different. Chen Mufeng glanced at him, "How about I visit your residence tomorrow?" Qin Mian saw Lei Tie sticking his head out of the window and quickly waved to Chen Mufeng as he walked over. "No problem. I'm leaving. See you later." *****. The next morning, not long after breakfast, Chen Mufeng came to the door. Qin Mian received him in the garden. After tea, cakes and fruits were served, he waved away all the servants. Chen Mufeng looked at the surrounding scenery. "I always think you are a very enjoyable person to be with. Indeed, You are. Life is too short. So of course, one should make merry while one can. Qin Mian poured him a cup of tea and did not ask him about Zhang Xunhe until he spoke of it himself. Chen Mufeng had been bitterly torn between Imperial Prince Ming and Zhang Xunhe for many years. He was really eager to find someone to talk to. He trusted Qin Mian's character, so he was the most suitable choice. With a sip of tea, Chen Mufeng gradually spoke, "It's been 6 years since I'd known him." After hearing about him and Zhang Xunhe, Qin Mian concluded, "So, your problem now is that your father doesn't object to you and Zhang Xunhe being together on the premise that you had to have a son first, but Zhang Xunhe doesn't want you to be with a woman." Chen Mufeng slightly nodded and heavily sighed. "Toward Zhang Xunhe, you?" asked Qin Mian. Chen Mufeng was slightly uncomfortable, "But my prince father only has me as his son." Qin Mian raised his eyebrows and asked another question, "Why does your father have only one son?" For a moment, Chen Mufeng didn't understand why he asked that. Qin Mian said, "I'm thinking that since your father doesn't want to cut off your family's lineage and Zhang Xunhe doesn't agree with you having children with a woman, maybe you can ask your father to have another son." Imperial Prince Ming was younger than Emperor Zai. Why he could have another son? Chen Mufeng was stunned for a moment. All of a sudden, he stood up and somewhat incoherently said, "Why didn't I think of that?" Qin Mian was speechless and didn't know what to say. This was the so-called blind are those concerned while a bystander sees through everything. Chen Mufeng soon calmed down and asked Qin Mian, "My prince father is over 40 years old. Can he still?" Qin Mian nodded in affirmation, "Of course. Over 40 is the prime of life." Qin Mian, "Thanks a lot. I'm right to be here today." Chen Mufeng was so excited that he grabbed Qin Mian's hand. Suddenly, he felt a hidden weapon coming to attack. He was shocked. He stepped back quickly and turned his head. LIAN stood a few steps away with no expression on his face. His sharp eyes stared at Chen Mufeng's hand as if he was thinking about cutting it off. The corner of Chen Mufeng's lips twitched. "State Defender Duke, this commandery prince also has a beloved, all right. This jealousy makes no sense." LIAN ignored him and sat down beside Qin Mian. "Wife, I'm hungry." Qin Mian was amused, but he still said, "What would you like to eat? I'll cook for you." Tisk tisk, Chen Mufeng had a load lifted off his mind, so now he was all smiles. He looked at them with disdain. "All right. I'm leaving and not staying to get in your way." Qin Mian waved his hand, "Go, go. I know you can't wait to see your young beau." Having his intention exposed, Chen Mufeng was even more embarrassed but remained calm. "Farewell." Qin Mian and LIAN went to the kitchen together. "What would you like to eat?" "Egg, fish." "Then we'll make egg fuyung, red cooked fish, tea-flavored ribs, and mushu pork." The couple got to work together. Qin Mian cooked rice and LIAN prepared the fish. "Has the person for the peace marriage been selected yet?" asked Qin Mian. LIAN replied, "Not yet." Qin Mian guessed, will Emperor Zai be reluctant to give up Princess Yanqing and choose a princess from the imperial clan instead? LIAN shook his head. It would be hard to fool the people of Toluo. They have already investigated how many imperial princesses Great Xia has. Qin Mian's imagination was greatly enriched. Will the Empress sends her daughter to marry for peace for the sake of her virtuous reputation? LIAN shook his head. End chapter.